Spring is on its way. I am so excited to share these nature-inspired spring DIYs that you're definitely going to want to make for your home decor. I have these natural twig nests that I picked up from my local dollar store. It came with a cute little egg. It's a styrofoam egg. I decided I wanted to paint it because I wasn't crazy about the white color. I wanted to create a robin's egg look. Now you can make your own bird's nest. I do have a tutorial on how you can create your home. I will have that link down in the description box for you. I decided I wanted to use this beautiful teacup to place this little bird's nest inside. I am going to use hot glue. It did not damage the teacup in any way, so if you're concerned about that, this is a safe option. If you want it permanent, I would definitely use something like E6000. I have got all these little scraps of some faux greenery in my stash, and I thought this was a great way to use up some of those little bits. They're left over from some previous projects. I did get these greenery and florals from Dollar Tree. They kind of have a nice, beautiful spring meadow look to them. I love using them for all kinds of different projects. So I had this teacup in my stash for a very long time, and I'm like, oh, it's so pretty. I've seen this craft on Pinterest before, and I thought this would be a great opportunity to give that project a try. So I'm just gonna add little snippets of the greenery all the way around on the inside around the nest, and then I'm gonna go ahead and add some florals to this as well. You can add all kinds of different things. Some dried florals would be really pretty as well. But since I had all these little bits in my stash already, I thought this was a great way to use them up. The paint is dried on the little egg, so I'm going to add that into the nest now. And I felt like it looked a little lonely sitting in there, so I'm going to go ahead and add just a few little pieces of some of my greenery and the florals in around the egg on the inside of the nest. I was also thinking you could add some really cute little feathers to this as well. I thought that would be a fun little touch. Maybe even a little bit of grass or maybe some Spanish moss too, just to create a really natural look if you would like to do so. I'm just going to stick with my greenery and some pretty little florals. Now, one thing I do absolutely love to do is add branches to my project. I think it just creates a more natural look. So I decided to just take some little pieces of branches and hot glue them into place in around the bird's nest. I'm also going to stick a few right directly into the nest, just like you would see a bird's nest built into a tree amongst the branches. It creates a really, really cool look. Once that's done, I decided I'm going to use this beautiful, fun spring ribbon as my hanger. I've got two different widths here. The wider one, I am going to tie it onto the handle, and then I'm going to tie the two strands together in a knot, and that will create my hanger. You can hang this on a doorknob or on a hook on your wall or on a cupboard, wherever you'd like. Just going to tie that into a simple knot. And then I decided, I'm like, it just needs a little bit more here. So I'm going to add a little bow with the skinnier ribbon that I had that matched my hanger. It's so pretty, isn't it? I have a real thing for bird's nests for springtime. How do you feel about them? Let me know down in the comment section. Also, would love to know the different craft projects that you have made using bird's nests. I love to be inspired by your suggestions. This was such an easy project to put together, and I think it's going to be beautiful as a gift for somebody or just to use as your spring decor. I have these butterflies in my stash for quite a while now. I wanted to try using them. Usually I use birds for my spring projects, but I'm like, you know what? Let's try a butterfly this time. I decided to tone down this bright blue using some of that sea spray blue. It's kind of like a robin's egg blue paint, and I'm just going to add a bit to this butterfly. Again, I just needed to tone down that really bright blue color because it wasn't going to work for the project that I've got. But I also wanted to use up some supplies that I have in my stash. So I painted the top and the bottom of the butterfly, just removing a little bit of the paint off of the black, just so the image still shows through, the definition of the butterfly still shows through. So I'm gonna allow that to dry. I got this pretty silver plated goblet from the thrift store. It was only $1. I needed to remove that price tag. Next, I've got this piece of scrap dry floral foam. I'm adding some glue to the contact points of the foam and putting that into place. Next, I'm using some Spanish moss. Now, the thing I find with Spanish moss, it actually creates kind of a bird's nest look when you gather it around your foam in a container such as this. It's really pretty touch. Added just a little gob of hot glue here and there to help hold that into place. Now, as you can see, I'm using those scraps of some greenery, again, leftover from some previous projects. It's the same greenery that I was using before. They are seriously one of my favorite greenery to use for springtime. They are so, so beautiful. Let me know if does Dollar Tree still have them? I haven't been into my store lately, so I'm not sure if they still carry this type of greenery and florals. So let me know, and others know. It would be great to know if they do have them still. So the key to this is that you want to pretend that with your floral foam, you're pointing all your stems towards the middle of that foam, and it'll create a nice balanced look. Again, I am adding some twigs. I find that adding twigs just brings it to another level. It really, really makes a difference, especially if you do love to bring nature inside. This is a great way to do so, and it just makes your arrangements look so beautiful and more natural looking. I'm just adding some pieces here and there, and again, pretending like I'm sticking it towards the center of my floral foam. I removed the clip off of the back of the butterfly. I'm going to figure out where I want to place it, add some hot glue, put it into place, and that is it. This project was so, so simple, so beautiful. Again, would make a great gift, especially since Mother's Day is coming up. I think this would be a beautiful gift to receive as a mom. This is a great recycling project, especially if you like to collect jars. I've got this jar that's all cleaned up, and I'm going to give it a coat of some gesso. Now, if you haven't used gesso before, gesso is a primer that artists use on their canvases or other substrates to prep the surface for paint. It works great for your craft projects as well, such as glass or any shiny surface. I gave it 2 coats of the gesso. This is the Artist Loft brand. It's a nice, smooth consistency. I recently got this beautiful spring napkin from a store called Ninny's Napkins online. It's an online craft store. I'm gonna just cut it down to size. Now, if your jar is big enough, you might be able to wrap your napkin all the way around, but my napkin was too big. So first though, I needed to prep it by removing the back layers off of the main design of your napkin. Next, I wanted to just outline around the images that I wanted to use using a thin paintbrush and some water. This is a great way to tear away any of the images that you want to use on tissue paper or napkins. As I said before, my napkin was just way too big for my jar, so I couldn't wrap it around and make it look nice. It looked really weird, so I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna do it this way, and it works really well. So if you're using tissue paper, you could probably just wrap all your tissue paper around your jar. That would be totally fine. But this worked well for me. So now I'm just going to figure out the placement. And as I was doing that, I'm like, oh man, there is a real color difference between the napkin and the gesso. So I decided to go in and add some cream craft paint and gave it just 1 coat of the craft paint. That helped tone down the really bright white, and it blended in better with the color of the napkin. You can see it's so much better. So now I'm gonna, again, just figuring out the placement of my images for my jar. I wanted the bird's nest to be a main feature for my project. So I have got one going on the front of the jar and then another one on the back. I'm using some decoupage glue. I'm using the Craft Smart brand. Of course, you can use Mod Podge. I prefer this brand over Mod Podge. I don't know, for some reason I find Mod Podge remains really tacky here where I live, but it depends on where you are and whatever type of glue you like to use. So add a coat underneath your napkin, press your napkin into place, and then you want to go over the top. Be very careful here. Napkins are, of course, very, very delicate, so they tear very easily. So I was being very gentle with applying my decoupage. Even with how gentle I was being, I still ended up tearing the napkin a little bit. I overworked some of the areas a little too much. Oops. But it still looked fine. You couldn't even really tell where I tore the napkin. The other thing is too, I don't mind the wrinkles that show. If that bothers you, there are lots of different techniques on how to apply napkins or tissue paper for decoupage. Another thing is there's been a few people say, why do I say decoupage? Well, decoupage is a French word and that's how it's pronounced. So I'm in Canada, and so that's how I find a lot of people pronounce it. I know there's some people that say decoupage, I think it is, but I say decoupage. So anyways, either way, it's both the same. So I'm just gonna go ahead here and add some of the pussy willow images as well, and that's actually gonna be a key design for this, as I am adding some pussy willows to the next step of this project. The jar is all nice and dry. It looks beautiful. I have these faux pussy willows, and I've had them in my stash for quite a while. I picked them up at a store called Dollarama here in Canada. I was being very careful here. The wire, oh man, it was stiff and really strong, but I wanted to create kind of like a wreath around the rim of the jar. So I managed to get one into a wreath form, and then I was trying to just kind of weave some of this in and out to create a wreath shape. And then I'm going to press it over the top around the rim of my jar. I did scrape off some of the paint here, but you're not going to see it, so it's okay. But now at this point, I'm like, okay, this was getting too difficult to do. So I decided just to add them straight onto the jar rim, as you see me doing here. And I added some hot glue as well. I'm twisting some of the pieces together and wrapping it around. Now, if you can't get yourself some faux pussy willows, you could try this with some real pussy willows as well. You might just have to use some floral wire and bend your stems to create a wreath look. Now, I have seen faux pussy willows at Michael's before, so definitely check out your local craft store. So here is that beautiful little wreath around the rim. Now I wanted to create a not a floral arrangement. This is actually going to be a leaf arrangement for my jar. I have a selection of the pussy willows, some twigs, and some different greenery. I have some from Dollar Tree, from Dollarama, from Michael's. I've had all of these in my stash for a while. I'm just going to remove any tags off of them and trim them down as they were too long for my jar. Of course, depending on the height of your jar will determine how tall you need your stems or how many you will need if you have created a really large jar. So here I'm just trimming these pussy willows. The wire stems were really thick. So what I like to do is just start it off with the wire cutters, bend it back and forth, and that'll snap the wire. If the paper comes loose, you can use some florist tape to wrap it all up, and that'll just prevent you from getting cut by any of the wires. So now I'm going to make my bouquet. I'm just layering all the different stems together, mixing them all up. Of course, you could use florals instead, but I really love just simple greenery for springtime. I think it's a beautiful, fresh look. You don't see this very often either. Most people use florals. So I thought, you know what, let's do something different here and just create a greenery arrangement or bouquet for springtime. So I'm just gonna mix them again all together. The twigs really make this stand out and make that really, really natural looking. So once you have them all together, I'm using an elastic band, wrapping it around the stems, and that will hold it all together. It looks beautiful. I'm so happy with how it turned out. My stems are still a little too long, so I'm gonna go ahead and snip off those ends. And then seriously, this project is just another quick and easy and simple project to do as far as making a bouquet this way. You can do this with some fresh as well. You can just put that into place and that is it. It's beautiful. I'm so happy with how this turned out. For more spring inspiration, check this video out here. Let me know what your favorite project is in this video and let me know if you plan on making any of these. I want to thank you all so much for joining me today and we will see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.